Ratios and proportions. So this is not new to you. This is from Algebra 1. I'm still going to cover it as if you've never seen it before, but I just want you to know like it is as easy as you remember. So if you just glance at this for 2 seconds, if you look at this, whenever you have a fraction equal to a fraction, you're going to cross multiply. That's from Algebra 1. That's not new, okay? So a ratio is the comparison of two quantities using division. So typically it looks like a fraction. That's typically how they write it. It's like this. An extended ratio is used to compare 3 or more quantities, A to B to C, and I'll show you what that looks like later, okay? A proportion is an equation with 2 equal ratios, like this, right? You solve by cross multiplying, so it would be A times D equals C times B, okay? Definition of cross product, this is wrong. The setup of this one's wrong, but on your paper is right. So look at your paper, don't look at my screen, okay? So on yours, you have A over B equals C over D. That's what you guys have. So then yours says it's equal to AD equals BC, which is what I showed you just before. This is not, it's a typo, so don't look at that. So we're just going to do a couple. It's super easy, okay? In any math class, you always want to make sure you reduce fractions. So even though this is a ratio, that's really like a fraction. So if I said 2:4, that's really 1:2, okay? There are 76 boys in a sophomore class of 166 students. Find the ratio of boys to girls. You have to be very careful. They said boys to girls. They did not say boys to everybody or boys to total. So how many boys are there? 76. How many girls are there? 90, because 166 minus 76 leaves us with 90. Okay? So in your head, you kind of want to say, okay, well, this is 76 over 90. This is a fraction. So I have to reduce it. I know those are both even numbers, so at least dividing by a 2, if not more. But if you guys get out your calculator that you're going to start bringing with you every day, you have one, right? If you take 76 fraction 90, it'll reduce the fraction for you. You can obviously use the division sign if you want to, but then you have to convert it back to a fraction probably, I'm guessing. So I think the fraction button is better. So what's 76 fraction 90 reduced to? 38:45. That's our final full credit answer. Did I lose anybody? Super easy. Okay. Always, always, always reduce. Every math class, you always reduce. All right. A cable that is 42 feet long is divided into 2 lengths that are in the ratio of 3:4. What are the 2 lengths of the cable? For something like this, I think you could probably guess and check your way to the answer, and that's fine. But I'm going to show you the mathematical way to get there for when it's not that easy. I don't know that you're going to be able to come up with that on your own, so I'm just going to show you what to do, and that's what you always do, okay? So what we're going to do here is 3x plus 4x is equal to, what do you think? 42, yeah. So when it's a ratio like that, I've got the 3:4. I don't know what the length of the cable is, so I'm just going to say x for right now. So 3x plus 4x equals 42. Solve for x. What do you get there? 6. Did anyone not get 6 for x and need help? Okay. So obviously that's not the answer. They said what's the length of the what's the 2 lengths of the cable? So if it was 3x and 4x, then what's 3 times 6? 18 feet for that piece, and then 4 times 6 is 24 feet for the second piece. So the 2 pieces are 18 and 24. This is not a ratio. These are the lengths of the piece of the cable or something. So I don't want to do 18 over 24 because what's that just going to give me again? The 3/4. Do you see what I'm saying? That's not what they asked me for. So on this one, I'm not reducing because it's not a ratio. It's the length of this piece is 18 feet. The length of this piece is 24 feet. You guys get the difference? Okay? Anyone still confused? All right. The ratio of the measures of 3 sides of a triangle is 2:5:4, and its perimeter is 165 units. Find the measure of each side of the triangle. It's the exact same thing we just did. Okay? So we're going to say 2x plus 5x plus 4x is equal to what? 165. Does everybody get what I did? Okay, so solve for x. Just shout it out when you get it. 15. Did anyone not get 15 for x and need help? Okay, so the actual question is find the measure of each side. So if x is 15, I'm going to take 2 times the 15 and get 30. 5 times the 15, 75. And then 4 times the 15, 60 units, technically. So I just gave them like a list, and that's fine. Have I lost anybody? Okay. That was number 3. So number 4, the ratio of the measures of 3 angles of a triangle this time is 4 to 6 to 8. Find the measure of each angle of the triangle. How am I going to start that? Yeah, okay, but how am I going to start it? You're right, though. So 4x plus 6x plus 8x is what? 180. Very good. That's what Dawson said. Good. Because they said the angles of a triangle, which obviously add up to 180. So on all the other ones, they gave us perimeter. So they gave us the number. But on this one, they said angles, and they did not give us 180. We had to figure that out on our own. So go ahead and solve for x if you haven't already. What did you guys get? X is 10. Did anyone not get 10 and need help? Okay. So what are the angles then? 40, 60, 80. Technically degrees, right? Did I lose anybody on the front side? No? Okay. Let's go ahead and do number 35 next, because that kind of goes with what we were just doing, okay? So jump to 35, please. All right. The perimeter of a rectangle is 220 inches. The ratio of its length to width is 7 to 3. Find the area of the rectangle. So we're going to start it like all those other ones before, but this time they said perimeter of a rectangle. So what is the formula for the perimeter of a rectangle? Say it again. Yeah, 2L plus 2W, right? So I'm not just going to say 7x plus 3x. I'm going to say 7x twice, and I'm going to say 3x twice, because they said perimeter of a rectangle. Do you guys get that? Okay, so I'm going to say 7x plus 7x for like the 2L, right? Plus 3x plus 3x for the 2W is equal to 220. Very good. Do you guys get the difference between this one and the ones on the front? All right, so go ahead and solve for x, please. We are on 35 on the back. Okay. 11. So the question, though, is find the area of the rectangle. On all the other ones, we just plug the 11 back in. So what are the two sides of the rectangle? 77 and 33. If they want area, what's the formula for the area of a rectangle? Length times width, right? So I'm going to have to take 77 times 33, which is what? 2,541 inches squared. Take a minute and look that over, because it is a little different than the other ones, but that's just because of the final question. They said find the area. They didn't say find the length of each side. So you just have to be really careful. So I put area as capital letters just to make sure you really caught that, but in the directions it wasn't capitalized for you, right? So you have to really make sure you read carefully. Is anyone confused at all? Super easy? Okay, so let's go backwards by 1. Let's go to this one. It's letter X on your notes, okay? This one's going to be a little bit easier than the other one, so I wanted to start with this one. So it says solve the proportion. So I have a fraction equal to a fraction. Whenever that happens in any math class, typically, you would take this times this, you cross multiply, set it equal to this times this. I'm going to take 2 times x squared minus 6x plus 9 in a moment equals 12 times x minus 3. I typically don't do the math first. I write down what I want to do first, and then I do it later. Does everybody understand that's your first step? That should be kind of familiar to you from Algebra 1. Okay, So I'm going to go ahead and distribute the 2 and distribute the 12. So when I distribute the 2, what do I get on the left side of this equal sign? 2x squared minus 12x plus 18 equals what? 12x minus 36. Thank you. Go back to algebra 1, or if you're in algebra 2, this should be easy. What do we want this equal to? 0. Yeah, whenever you have x squared blah, 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 like we do, we want it equal to 0. I typically prefer my x squared to be a positive. It's just easier for me. So I'm going to move everything to the left. Okay? So I've got 2x squared still. That's not going to change. Minus 12x and minus this 12x is minus 24x. Positive 18 plus 36 more is 54. So I have descending order equal to 0. X squared is positive. Okay? Because x squared is positive, factoring is an option. If not, what else could I do to solve? Quadratic. Yeah, either way. So on this one, I'm going to go ahead and refresh your memory on factoring because it's quicker. But if you don't get it, that's fine. I'll take some time later. But for today, I'm just going to do a real quick factor. Okay? So if you don't get it, that's okay. You can quadratic. No big deal. Right? Whenever you factor, no matter what method you use, the first step is always the GCF. What do these have in common? A 2, right? They're all even, so I can pull out a 2. So if I pull out the 2, if I factor out the 2, I'm left with x squared minus 12x plus what? What's 54 divided by 2 is what I'm doing? 27. Do you guys all understand that that's technically the same thing as what's written above it? It just looks different, but technically they're the same. I didn't really change anything, okay? So whenever I have that, because I'm solving, the 2 is kind of annoying, so I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to divide both sides by 2. If I divide the left side by 2, it cancels out to a 1, right? If I divide the right side by 2, what do I get? Starting Monday, you'd be in trouble. If I divide the right side by 2, what's 0 divided by anything? 0. So the 2, basically, I don't want you to think it disappeared, but it goes away because I divided by a 2. So I'm left with x squared minus 12x plus 27 equals 0 still. Do you guys get how I got here? Okay. So the reason I wanted to do this one first is because with factoring, this one's easier because of this 1. If there's a 1 in front of the square, the answer is the pair. If there's a 1 in front of the square, the answer is the pair. So what I'm saying is you don't have to do bottoms up. I think in 8th grade, you guys called that the high school method. You don't have to do bottoms up because dividing by a 1 doesn't change anything. So all I'm saying is, what's 1 times 27? 27, right? 1 times 27 is 27. I need to find whatever multiplies to 27. So I'm just going to find factors of that. Since you probably don't remember this super great, I'm going to write everything down. So I've got 1 and 27 and 3 and 9. Those are the only ways that I can multiply to 27. Do you guys get that? So I want it to multiply to a positive, which means they're either both positive or they're both negative. One of those has to happen. I want it to add to this negative 12 in the middle. So they both have to be negative, if that's going to happen, right? Does negative 1 and negative 27 give me negative 12? I'm going to go no, right? Does negative 3 and negative 9 add up to negative 12? Yeah. So I have x minus 3 and I have x minus 9. That's how you factor when there's a 1 in front. Again, if that made 0 sense to you or you don't remember at all, that's okay. We'll do quadratic formula instead on the next one, okay? So whenever you have two things being multiplied set equal to 0, you pull them apart and set them equal to 0 separately. That's called your zero product property. So x minus 3 is equal to 0 and x minus 9 is equal to 0. So what's x in this part? 3, and here, 9. So x is 3 and x is 9. You don't really want to guess and check that. That would not be fun, okay? Some of these are going to end up being fractions and decimals and stuff. So if that's kind of how you survived Algebra 1, was kind of guessing and checking your way, that worked for that, but pretty much it won't do that anymore. You'll want to do this, okay? One more, same concept. I'm going to take this times this, so plus 3 times x minus 1 equals this times this, 3 times 6. If you really just can't stand it and you want to write down 18, that's fine. I just typically don't do any math first. I just write it down first. Okay? So what are we going to do on the left side? What's that called? FOIL. Very good. First, outer, inner, last, right? So what's my first times first? What's 2x times x? 2x squared. Excellent. Outers. What's 2x times negative 1? Negative 2x. Inners. That's 3 times x is 3x. Last, 3 times negative 1, negative 3 equals 18. First, outer, inner, last. Is that okay? So you combine like terms in the middle here. 2x squared plus x minus 3 equals 18. Whenever you have x squared blah, 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 what do you want it equal to? 0. So I'm going to subtract the 18 over because this is already a positive. It doesn't have to be positive. If you're going to do the quadratic formula, it doesn't matter. But if you're going to factor, it does need to be a positive. So typically, I just make it positive anyway. Okay? So I'm going to move everything over. So 2x squared plus x minus what? 21 equals 0. Okay? I am going to factor it just to refresh your memory on factoring, but I'm also going to do the quadratic formula just in case you can't remember factoring to save your life. That's okay too. Okay? So first step, GCF. Other than a 1, do we have a GCF here, greatest common factor? No, because this is a 1, so nothing's going to go into them, right? So I'm going to take 2 times negative 21 off to the side. And what is 2 times negative 21? Negative 42. So I don't worry about the sign right now. I'm just going to say 1 and 42, 2 and 21. Does 3 go into 42 evenly? I think so, because 4 plus 2 is 6, right? That's the trick. So 3 goes into 6, so it has to. Now the question is how many times? So how many times does 3 go into 42 evenly? Take 42 divided by 3. 14, okay? Does 4 go into 42? No. 5? No. 6? How many? Okay. Once they're 1 away or once they match, you know that you're done. Because I would check 7 next, and I'd just go back down my list. Okay? So what I need is it to multiply to a negative, but add to a positive. All right? So I'm not going to worry about my signs for right now. Are 1 and 42 ever going to make a 1? No. It doesn't matter what I do. They're not going to be a 1. What about 2 and 21? No. 3 and 14? No. 6 and 7, if I'm careful, can give me a positive 1. So again, multiply to a negative, so they have to be opposite signs. One has to be negative, one has to be positive. Add to a positive. So if it needs to add to a positive, the bigger number has to be positive. Is that okay? All right. So this multiplies to negative 42, and it adds to positive 1. So for right now, for bottoms up method, I'm going to say x minus 6, and I'm going to say x plus 7. Even though I know that's not really true, because those don't multiply to a 2x squared, do they? So what I have to do is bottoms up. I have to divide by that 2 from the front. So if it reduces, reduce it. If it doesn't, bottoms up. What's 6 over 2 reduced to? Just a 3. And then this one does not, so bottoms up. 2x plus 7. If you remember factoring, awesome. If not, just kind of bear with me, okay? So pull them apart, set them equal to 0 separately. This is the easy part. So x is 3 here. Subtract 7, divide by 2. Negative 7 over 2 here. You can leave it that way if you'd like to. Bear with me for just a moment. I'm going to do quadratic formula instead because I feel like most people probably didn't remember factoring super great. Okay? Did you guys have a question on anything before I do the quadratic? Okay. With the quadratic, from here where it's equal to 0 is where we're going to do it. So 2x squared plus x minus 21. I want everybody to watch anyway because some of these will not factor and your only option is going to be the quadratic formula anyway. Okay? So even if you understood factoring, watch. So quadratic formula, x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That's your quadratic formula. So in this question, what's a? 2, b, 1, c, negative 21. I'm just going to substitute. Okay? So x equals negative b is going to be negative 1 plus or minus. It's going to be 1 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. I didn't do anything fancy. I just plugged it in. Okay? So order of operations, we're going to do our grouping symbols first. 1 squared is obviously 1. 2 negatives make a positive, so I don't want to look at my signs anymore. What's 4 times 2? 8 times the 21. 168. Good. What's 168 plus 1? 169. Square rooted all over 4. What's the square root of 169? Use calculator. 13. Okay? So we have two answers here. We have negative 1 plus 13 over 4, and we have negative 1 minus 13 over 4. What's negative 1 plus 13? 12 over 4 is 3. What's negative 1 minus 13? Negative 14 over 4 reduces to negative 7/2, which is what we had the first time. So if you don't remember factoring at all, it's totally fine. Just get it equal to 0 and do the quadratic formula. That's fine. It's just longer. Okay? If you sort of remember factoring and that just wasn't good enough, I have a factor review video on YouTube where if you go to my YouTube channel, it's I think it's under a, not a loop, what are those called? Where I have like a bunch of videos all shoved together. Playlist, yep. It's in a playlist and it says like review videos. So the one that you would want, I think it literally says like factor review video, bottoms up. It's like a 5-minute video. You don't have to watch it. That's totally fine. I just wanted you to know it's there in case you were like this close to getting it, but you just needed a little bit more. Okay? Did I lose anybody anywhere? Pretty easy overall, right? Okay.